Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We're glad to see all of you here this morning. I'm Ben Haskew. I am President and CEO of the Greenville, South Carolina Chamber of Commerce and serve as Chairman of the CCE Commission. On my left is Bob Quick. Bob is the President and CEO of Commerce Lexington, who, by the way, was in the fourth category last night as a runner-up for Chamber of the Year. Congratulations, Bob. Bob is chair-elect of the commission. Let's see, well, Kelly Hall walked out of the room, but, oh, there she is. Two members of our commission here, Kelly Hall from Longview, Texas, and John McMartin. John, who is a past chair of the commission. What we want to do this morning is just kind of walk you through what is required and the process for going after your CCE. Do we have any of the new CCEs in the room? There we do. Great. Glad you all are here too. Terrific. One of the things we'll talk about later on is the opportunity for you to talk with any of the commissioners or new class members who might become mentors for you as we move through. So here's what we want to cover today: the who, what, why, when, how all this works. And so we'll get right into it. And Bob and I are going to play tag team here, and John McMartin's in the back, and Kelly will bail us out if we get in trouble. Right, guys? So, thanks. Here's the full commission. Bob and I are introduced. Past Chair Raymond Burns, who couldn't be with us for this meeting. And you'll see others, maybe some who are close to you in geography around where your chamber is, and then several new members of the commission at the end here: Troy McClellan, Elaine Spalding, Matt McCormick, and Brad Hicks. Here is our new class. Again, we had 11 that went through this year. Very proud of this group and what they accomplished, and so they can tell you firsthand all about it. All right, so who qualifies? Some of the basics. Once you've been in chamber work in a senior level position for 6 years, that's kind of an entry thought about the CCE program. There's an application process which requires a minimum of 175 points. We're going to get into more of what that application requires, and we actually have some sample copies if you'd like to leave here with a sample copy of those. There are a number of supporting documents that are required with your application. You'll hear more about those too. Things like financials and strategic plan, annual reports, things like that. But we want to know that you've had a direct role and participated in the development of some of those documents. Now, here's a critical point, and you know, for some it may be tough. It deals with financials. The CCE program requires that if your chamber is $500,000 in annual budget or greater, that you have an annual review by a certified financial firm and an audit at least every other year. For chambers smaller, under $500,000, an annual review by a certified financial firm and an audit every 3 years. Now, most organizations that are in that larger category are probably like mine. They're probably doing an annual audit. But again, this is a basic requirement, so you need to be sure that when you're ready to apply, that your organization has achieved these financial reporting documents. And then we want you to be obviously currently employed in the chamber profession. We've had some in the past that have started the process and were in a chamber CEO role, and then their life changed and they became CEO of a different kind of organization. Obviously, then they were not eligible to move along through the process. So, you know, obviously, I think those of us in this room are passionate about what we do, and certainly that's very important in wanting to pursue this in terms of a long-term career goal. So what is CCE? Well, it's certainly the highest professional achievement and distinction you can earn in our profession. There is a mastery of body of knowledge work that has been assembled and developed by ACCE and many of us through the years. We certainly want to see that commitment to the chamber profession and a dedication to managerial excellence. And one of the things that all of the commissioners, as we talk to people about this process, is we are in our worlds always giving credit to others, to our volunteers, perhaps our other staff members. This process is about you. And we want to talk about you throughout this process. We want to know what you have done, how you have contributed, and so that will be a recurring theme as you move along in pursuing your CCE. Okay? So body of knowledge, I'm not going to read all of this, but basically what we've tried to do is assemble really benchmarks for the chamber profession that really serves as a foundation for the way we are managing our organizations and the way we operate each and every day. We'll have more on this a little bit later, but this is about expertise that is developed along the way and the responsibilities that we all share in our roles as senior executives in our organizations. You find all of this, by the way, on the ACCE website in a lot of detail. So why do you want to do this? Well, certainly it's about kind of testing where you are in your career, your knowledge and your skills. I truly believe it does elevate your personal and professional status. I think it was mentioned last night when we were presenting the new class that through the lifetime of this program there have only been about 500 CCEs awarded. Probably about 325 or so that are active CCEs at this point. So it's, out of 7,000 chambers of commerce, it's certainly a limited size peer group. It's clearly a mark of excellence in terms of our profession, not unlike accreditation for your organization that's done by the U.S. Chamber, but as again we said, this is about you. Does increase your credibility with your peers, members, your board, your community. I can remember when I got the call to ask me to serve on the commission, and I shared that with my board. The reaction just really stunned me that, they were very proud of not only what I'd done when I achieved my CCE, but to be a part of this group that would continue that process. And it really does, I think, advance your career opportunities and your compensation, and it certainly raises the standards in the chamber profession. We'd like to believe that every chamber that loses a CEO is going to look for a new chamber professional, and at some point many of those would require the CCE as a part of that process. So, all right, when to apply? Well, as you are going to learn, you're going to know more about all the requirements this morning. When you think you're ready to take that next step, it is a process that really begins now in the next few weeks as you think about your intent to apply, and as you begin to gather the information about the contributions you've made to the profession, your documentation, all that sort of thing. The application is submitted somewhere around early December, and then you're off and running through the process of essays, oral reviews and interviews, and the ultimate exam that's done somewhere along in June, and then the award of the new CCEs at this meeting next year in Montreal. So it's a process that takes maybe not quite a year, but it will take some dedication to go through the process. And then, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's when your chambers certainly had that 3-year cycle of financial review and audit. Okay, deadline is right there on the slide, December 6th. All right. The purpose, I think, certainly goes back to the body of knowledge And what we want to do is evaluate each candidate's mastery of the 4 core areas, which is management, planning and development, membership and communication, and operations. Certainly you all know these things. There is a required, and that's a new term coming out of our commission meeting as of Tuesday, not a preferred reading, but really required reading as you move through the process and get prepared for the exam. Is this your slide?
That's my slide.
All right, Bob, quick. I'm going to turn it over to you and take a breath here. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Make sure you see the screen here. So let's walk through the 5 steps that you need to go through. I'm going to turn it back over here to Ben in a minute. He's going to get into a lot of the detail of the application, which tends to be where a lot of the questions come from. So I get to be the Vanna, so to speak, and then you get to go back and really do the heavy lifting.
You don't look like Vanna.
I don't look like Vanna. That was probably a very bad example to give. So you have an application that you will fill out. It's an online application. Let me see here. And it's going to look something like that. Actually, let me go back a step here. So the 5 steps will be first the application, and then if you have the qualified points, then you can go on to the next step. So we'll get into the application just here 1 second. The second part will be an essay that you do, and I'll cover those parts here in a second. The third will be an oral presentation, and then an interview. The oral presentation and the interview, if you make those steps, will be done in the same location. We'll have a site that you will go to somewhere in the U.S. We try to make that convenient for all the folks applying. And then the last part, which people seem to dread, but quite frankly, by the time you get there, you're ready for it, is the exam. It's a written exam. You have someone who will proctor that, and that'll all be set up. So now let's jump forward. Show one of these. So this is all online, but this is one of the written documents for the application. And we do have a few up here at the end if you want to have something in hand. But as Ben pointed out earlier, everything is on the ACCE website. The online application is really easy to fill out. And also, I think, just arriving hot off the printer, our intent to apply. So that'll be another document that you could fill out to let us know that you are interested in applying. The next step is supporting documentation, and on the online version, as well as if you print that off, in the back it talks about documentation that will be required. There's several things, and there's a checklist that you'll need to provide with your application. And ultimately you'll put this into a binder that you'll want to have. You want to make it look nice and neat, but you'll have a current year strategic plan, a previous year chamber strategic plan. You'll have an annual business plan or program of work for the current and previous years. Same thing with your annual report. You'll have a current and previous year report, an annual budget, both current and previous, and then audited financial statements for both the current and previous years. A position description, chamber organizational chart, personnel policy manual, and then a bio resume. So those will be documents that you'll all need to pull together along with your as part of your application process. Also then references. You'll need to have several references. One would be from a chamber exec from your state, preferably a CCE. So you're looking at one letter there. Also then you could have multiple community leaders, but at least one. And then volunteer chairman, or in some cases, some chambers, the volunteer leader of the board is still titled president, but you would need to have one individual within the last 4 years. Okay. And then, as I just pointed out a minute ago, you'll want to package all these things together, and that's where we list out here. You'll want to put together a nice notebook that's presentable. Oftentimes, that'll be one of the first things that we'll see about you, so you want to make sure that you package it well.
So for the recording purpose here, the question is, if you produce an annual report that's done in video and not in print, how would you submit that? Bob, my thought would be submitted on a DVD as a part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
You can tell as technology is invading our world in a major way. That's a good point, and that's something we can talk about with our CCE meetings. But yes, I concur. So again, pointing this out, this is what the application will look like, and I'm going to turn this back over to Ben, who's going to walk you through the process, how that all works, and then again, the most important thing is if you have questions, just like you had, please stop us and feel free to ask those questions.
Okay, Bob, thanks. So, the application, again, we have some sample copies up here. And again, you build points based on a number of things that you've done. Some of it is around education. Obviously, you can see your points build with your degrees that you've attained. Section 2 is about the conferences like this you've attended. There's points for national conferences like here at ACCE, then there's state conferences. All those points build and add to the process. You'll see going through the application that, you can build points in a lot of ways. Now, some of you probably know, you may not know that you can go to myacce.org and track at least the participation you've had with ACCE on the website. You might have been on an ACCE committee too. Don't miss those opportunities. There are other parts of the application that have to do with service on your state execs board, as an example. If you've been a board member, if you've been an officer, you amass points with that kind of participation. If you've written a paper, not for your newsletter, but something that may have been used as you taught at a state execs association meeting, or you presented a certain concept around chamber work. All of that would again build points towards the 175 that are needed. So those are examples. Yes, question in the back. Okay, first question, let me just get it into the system here, is if you record a webinar and participate, but you're not an active participant, while it's...
The ACCE webinars that are available.
ACCE webinars.
Time slot that's convenient. So
How do you get credit for that, right, is the question. And I think Crystal Moore, who is the staff person at ACCE, who works with us through this process, I think as long as if you would notify Crystal that you participated in that way, I think that would document it. So your second part of your question.
my other question is, I've attended the Economic Development Institute through Oklahoma University. Where does that, I can never figure out where that falls on the application.
I'm looking at the application right now. The question was, attended the Economic Development Institute. You said in Oklahoma, right? Where would that qualify? I'm sure there could be a place here. I'm just skimming it myself. John, do you remember?
I think it's under the education arena.
Okay.
And Ben, I believe there was at some points for other certifications. So
Okay. Well, we will find that for you through Crystal and be sure you get the answers to your question. But that is a legitimate points opportunity, I think, in the process. Another question in the back.
Well, I have a question that as far as the webinars, I listed my webinars on there. So you can list them on there.
Right. There's a place to list all the webinars.
So
Correct.
you don't have to.
John McMartin, who's a past chair of the commission, I think probably can address that.
that has been.
Well, I don't know how much dead time ended up in the recording over all that. No, that's okay. Just to quickly summarize, the question was for small chambers who've had a difficulty with their volunteer leadership and their local financial people who say, well, we're doing all the right stuff, we just don't get to that point of having an audit. Has that been addressed by the commission? And John McMartin's response is, after 13 years, it's been addressed numerous times, and we always come back to, yes, there is that 1 and 3 year requirement that we got to stick to. Okay. There was another question. Yes. Yeah, in Greenville, my organization's about $3 million a year between the Chamber and Chamber Foundation. We have an auditor that's been doing our audit now several years. They do all of our 990 work as well, and our bill's about $9,000.
Well, I think it must be a definition thing in terms of, because our CPA firm told us, and they're already doing that, but to have another third party do a true audit, that it would be significantly more dollars than what those determined.
Okay. All right. We'll move along here. I think we've touched on some of these next slides already around how you earn points in terms of education, continuing education. By the way, Bob did find the place for the question about the Economic Development Institute. There certainly is a place under Section 3, Professional Development, to add those other professional development opportunities that you've been through. Okay. Again, education. Again, this just gives you kind of a sample picture of how you earn the points there for various degrees and so forth. And then here's the continuing education section where you'd pick up things like institute and other types of things that you've done. Let's see. Is the teleseminar on that page? I don't know if it's on that page, but there is a special area where you can list your webinars, teleseminars. Yeah, under let's say it's what section? Section 3. So it follows the professional development section. I mentioned this earlier. Your professional contributions, things where you've authored or been a presenter at a meeting. Leadership, where you've been in either local, national board slots or officer slots, and then there's also a section for your awards and honors and other designations. All right? Section on leadership. This is professional and civic. Again, this is where you list board positions and things that you've done. Even committee, local civic things that you've done. Maybe you've been president of the local Rotary Club or another civic club. Those things can be listed there. Bob already mentioned the supporting documents. Here again is kind of that list. I'll give you an example of something that comes to our attention when we're looking at the notebooks as commissioners and when we go to do the interviews. There was one this past year where the personnel manual was dated 2009, and I thought that was a little bit outdated for the process. If you work with a general counsel or someone that helps advising you from an HR standpoint about your personnel manual, those manuals should probably be at least reviewed annually and maybe updated on a more periodic basis than maybe every 5 years, which is what it looked like in that case. So things like that I would pay some attention to. If you haven't had a recent review of your personnel manual before you put your documents together, I'd suggest that's probably a good idea. Okay? Bob, anything else you want to say about the supporting documents? Okay. All right, we mentioned the notebook. And again, I guess I'll tell you more about how these are used. All the supporting documents, your application, so forth, you put into 5 3-ring binders. That's what will be submitted to Crystal Moore when your application comes forward, with all the other activity reports and so forth. Then you later on, when you do your oral reviews with a commission panel, there will be 3 of us that do those. And so 3 of the notebooks go to the commissioners who will actually do your interview. So we look through those notebooks, and I can tell you that, some are done in full-blown color and some are done very basic. It's more about the information, frankly, just to be sure that you have all the information submitted and so forth. And then when we go to the location where we do the interviews, those are handy so that if we want to ask questions about your notebooks and the interview process, we can. Yes, Anjel.
When is the notebook submitted, in December or after December?
I wish Crystal was in the room because I don't remember. It's December? Yeah.
It's, there's an intent to apply date. And
Right.
I think Crystal holds a teleseminar after that date, and then the December 6th deadline is the deadline for the notebooks.
Okay. And by the way, Crystal would normally be in here with us to answer some of these technical kinds of questions, but another one of her jobs is running the whole show here, so she had a number of things that she had to deal with as far as this morning goes. So any of those questions we can answer, we'll certainly get answers to.
And also, so you know that as the process evolves, there will be conference calls so that you'll always be primed for that next piece, that next component, and then you can ask questions that, again, right now you may not be thinking of, but as you're getting into this deeper, will come to mind. So, and even in lieu of that, if you have questions, there will be folks that, for example, we're going to encourage this in a minute about mentors, but also Crystal at ACCE, or people like John McMartin who have a wealth of knowledge. So just people that you can connect with that would answer your questions.
Okay, I think you're going to talk about essays, right?
Essays. So step 2. So we've gotten through step 1, which is the application. It may sound a little bit more complicated in some respects than it is, but actually the way that it's been set up now and online, it's really a very smooth process, and those little questions you have here, there, where an item goes, we'll be able to answer those as you go through that. So the next point is the essay, and this is really where we're trying to learn the candidate's written communication skills. So there's really 2 pieces to that. The first one is where you'll select a topic from the Chamber Professions body of knowledge, and Ben pointed out earlier, that's on the ACC website, but it looks like this. It's broken down by, and this is actually a great piece just to go through professionally. It really kind of helps you get a sense of the whole profession. Sometimes people say, well, gee, what all are you responsible for? Well listed, well documented, and outlined here as far as all those different skills of what you need to do to have that high-octane, high-performing organization. So you will first select a topic, very broad. Your first communication piece will be any topic you want that you pull from the body of knowledge. So this can be from the management to membership, how you go about developing your membership, retaining it. It could be in anything to do with your strategic planning, just a whole host of areas, but it's something that you'll feel comfortable articulating. It's a 2-page essay, and then it's evaluated by the commission, the CC commission, and then a communication specialist. Okay. The second item is a 1-page essay outlining your financial procedures to protect your board's fiduciary responsibilities. Very significant aspect of the profession is how you protect your organization with your board. So those 2 items you will develop and have those in as part of the application process.
Okay.
Next piece that you'll have will be an oral presentation. I know I've already had a couple of people ask me, well, gee, where would it be at? We try to find a location that's central that people who are applying can come to. Sometimes it may be a little bit further than maybe a central location, but we try to make that workable for those who are applying. And also, we usually try to align it with, there's another ACCE function going on about the same time. It's a small event calling a board of directors meeting. Mm-hmm. Okay, bad joke. And so we do try to line it from the standpoint of having resources kind of shared but working together with ACCE. So that is a date that we would get to you. Usually it's around the April time frame. You would then have, and I'm going to break this down into really 2 components in that you'll have an oral presentation. It'd be a 10-minute formal presentation to a panel of CCE commissioners. Typically there's 3 in a room. We make it very comfortable. This is not a pressure where you got to come in and that presentation you have to give, it's really just so you feel very comfortable to really share the topic that you have chosen for your presentation, and you'll present on your primary essay topic. And there will be some questions at the end of that, but again, it'll be to try to draw down from the knowledge that you have of your particular topic. And then we do encourage PowerPoint and handouts. I am an example of someone who almost got caught way back when digital was finally kind of coming on the scene. I was going to press everybody into a PowerPoint. So I had it all set up. Fortunately, before I left Evansville, Indiana, to head to St. Louis, which is where I was going to do my presentation, my board chair, who was big in media communications, called and said, "You have a backup on paper." And I said, "No." He said, "You will stop by my office on the way. We will run this off. It's simple." I go, "I think I'm fine." He said, "You are not fine." Get to St. Louis. I have all the equipment set up the night before. I made all kinds of changes. I'm keep updating it. The next morning, everything's working. I'm like, this is great. I love PowerPoint. And I walk into the room, and the projector will not work. I handed out all of my PowerPoint, my whole presentation in writing to everybody, and I saved a sweat bead. I mean, I was sweating, but I was able to. But anyway, have a backup. I think that's very important. You just never know what may happen. The second part, so after you do your 10-minute oral presentation, then what we do is we'll open it up with the same commission panel, and we'll just ask you general questions about your overall notebook, so to speak, the content that's in that. And again, it's just to kind of do a deep dive down into the different initiatives and things that you've done. Nothing to be afraid about or scared about, because these are things you live with, breathe, and die. This is your life day in and day out, 24/7. And we just want to ask you some questions and find out a little bit more and really help you as far as to dig down and to know the different items of which you've done. So it'll be interviewed by CCE commissioners, and it'll be, again, as I said, the notebook that you have presented.
Of those new class members, y'all weren't nervous in New Orleans when you did your presentation, were you? Well, we do try to create an atmosphere that's not threatening, but, that first part of that essay presentation is a little more formal. The second part is a little less formal, and hopefully we'll put people at ease at that point. There was a question right over here.
Do we know immediately we've moved on to the next phase, or is that a letter of mail? I mean, how does that work?
We don't write any letters. No. Typically, here's what happens. All of the panels do score the candidates. That's all compiled. In this case, it'll be Crystal Moore will do the compiling. Usually these are done, I'd say, on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, depending on the class size, okay? There were 11 in the class that just went through. And then I would say by Monday or Tuesday the next week, you will get notification that you're moving on. Okay.
And let me just add, one of the neat things about my involvement with ACCE is you get to work with people like Ben and Linda and others that are on the commission. Just really, they have been there. They've been in your shoes. We've all been in your shoes. And it's one of those things where we're very conscious not to string anyone out. We try to get right back to you once we have things scored. So a lot of people get a little nervous and tense in that process because you want to put your best foot forward and you want to be one of those few with certification. But we are very conscious of that and try to let you know as quickly as we can.
Usually by phone.
Yeah, usually by phone.
Usually by phone.
That's correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we call, we don't send you a letter.
No, you get a phone call.
You get a phone call.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What you've all heard about, the exam. The exam is a 4-hour online proctored exam by a CCE, hopefully convenient to your location. So we ask commissioners and other CCEs to be the host site for proctoring the exams. We had a discussion about the exam again in our Tuesday commissioners board meeting. We've been online now through 2 cycles with this exam. We're going to use some of the spring late this year in springtime to probably look at some of the points of the exam, some of the questions. And just to kind of set the stage right now, one of the issues with the exam, and I know the current class members will remember this, is that as you go through the exam, when you move page to page, the way the software for this exam is developed right now is you cannot go back. If you go back, you lose what has been up to that point submitted. That's one of the issues we're going to look at. Again, we 3 years ago acquired this software and worked with it when John Carlson was on the staff, and we're trying to work through some of those kind of questions and things. But again, as we've said, and I think those that have just been through the process will say to you as you're considering this, that we work very carefully to communicate with you along the way. There are a number, as Bob said, of conference calls with the class as you move through, so that there hopefully are no surprises in the process and as you move along. So, you're gonna see as you get closer to the exam stage, a lot of information about the exam itself. There is going to be these must-read books and other things that will, again, help you prepare. The body of knowledge is critical. And then you see how the testing is scored. It's basically multiple choice and short answer. I proctored an exam, not this class, but the class before. It took 4 hours to do the to do the exam. So, and then again, that is each, you must have the 175 points for the application to move on. Then you must, of course, do well with the interviews and the essays, so forth, and then you must pass the exam to move on. Yes, ma'am, question?
Is there a list of all of the CCEs around the nation?
Yes, ma'am. On the website, if you click under careers, then there's a CCE toolbar, and a couple of clicks through that, and you can see who the current CCEs are, listed with their chambers and their location. It's a good place to start getting a basis of who those folks are around you that already have the program. Yes, John? Okay. John McMartin, our past commission chairman, was just emphasizing again the importance of the reading materials. Any questions? Yes, Anjo.
Are the list of reading materials on the website, or you'll give them to us as the process evolves?
I think they're on the website, but I know Crystal will, anyone that gives us an intent to apply will start giving you more specific information. Yes, sir.
Your Canadian paper taking this? You had to go to the American CCE local chamber for the test?
You want to answer?
As far as the testing,
Yeah.
the testing will be set up close to where you're at, so that someone that is approved by ACCE can proctor that. So it's typically another chamber executive. But we want to have the proctoring done close to wherever you're at. You may, I had, I think, go about 3 hours at a drive to. I probably could have got someone a little bit closer, but typically it's closer than that as far as where you need to go. But it needs to be someone in the profession that the commission approves.
Maine and Vermont.
I'll say again, John, you wanted to add something?
We've had somebody from Anthony in Paris. We made some very specific exceptions for Anthony. We found somebody in Paris that could actually proctor the exam for him. Will is from the
Cayman Islands.
Will, it was actually cheaper for Will to fly into D.C. and do it at the ACCE office.
We all offer those to go proctor that.
Yeah, that's right. We're thinking about having a commission meeting in the Caymans, too.
We've been trying to get there.
And let me also just remind everyone that, again, a lot of what the CC is about is really kind of digging deep down into your background experience. So a lot of this test is going to be built on things that you've experienced. Reading materials, absolutely don't overlook them. Don't put them aside. Please go through those. But a lot of this is going to be built on That's why we have the 6-year requirement. It's going to be built on your past experiences. Ellie.
Okay, so on the ACCE.org website, if you go to the Certified Chamber Executives page, it has the criteria, it has the bookstore, it has all this great information. It's already populated up there for you guys. Just take advantage of it.
And she's been quiet for an hour. Thank you, Kelly. There was another question. Yes.
Today, if I have one suggestion on the reading is start in December. Whenever you're accepted, start reading.
Start now. It's a lot of stuff to read.
Yeah.
And again, those are two great points from two new CCEs in that the depth of the materials will help you in what you're doing. So by putting it off just to get through a test is really missing the real value and the point of this, is that take those materials as soon as you can and start going through them. The more you go through those, the more you refresh yourself, you're just making yourself better. And it'll help on the test, but it'll also help you in your career.
I'll go back and say just one thing to think about in terms of budgeting for this process. Probably the biggest item that you would need to think about is a springtime, probably an April travel expense. Again, as Bob said earlier, sometimes we'll coordinate this with an ACCE board meeting. Sometimes it works out a little differently. 2 years ago, we were down in Kelly's area at the DFW airport. Everybody was able to fly in, do their interviews, and fly right back out. Last year, we were in New Orleans. It was tied to an ACCE board meeting. So, just keep in mind that springtime travel, and then of course, this conference next year in Montreal, where you would receive your CCE, would be the other thing to think about. There is an application fee. I don't remember it's $400. Okay, sorry. So for the recording purpose, let me just get this down, that the question was about how much should one budget to go through the process, and Kelly Hall was suggesting about $2,000 probably for the application fee, the travel to the oral review, the books, and all of that. But that wouldn't include the next conference in Montreal. Yes. For the recording, there were a couple of suggestions here about the books, the reading materials. One is some of them might be available on Amazon at a very cheap price, and the other thought was to contact members of the class that just successfully went through. They might be willing to share. Was there another question? Yes, ma'am. I don't think we necessarily have statistics. Crystal may have them, but I'll tell you that the class 2 years ago was 21. All 21 did go through all the way. This current class did have, I think, 13. There were 2 people who did not finish the exam, so they stopped really at that point. And from them admitted that they really had not prepared the way they should. So I think my understanding is they can pick it up again next year at the exam phase. So they can prepare next year and start at the exam piece.
But there is a window.
Yeah.
You can't drop it this year and decide to start again 5 years later.
Yeah.
It's 3 years.
3 years. 3-year window.
And
Thanks,
one thing
Linda.
I would throw out is I hear a lot of times people will say, and I even felt this way myself, is, well, I'm going to put off another year. I'm going to put off another year. I'm going to be a little bit smarter, a little bit wiser. Don't fear. Do not go through the process. Don't hold back because you're fear you might fail and then people might laugh at you. It doesn't work that way at all. No one knows, where you're at in that process, or for whatever reason, just like they said, a couple who acknowledged that they worked the materials. But even if you just don't pass, that's okay. That's all part of the process, because you can come back again in that window period. John?
John was just commenting for the recording that, this is really a process of lifelong learning. Look at it that way. And John, I will add to that you do have to maintain your CCE status. Every 5 years, you'll be asked to submit a form that documents your continuing education essentially for the past 5 years. There's nothing really required like the original process in that maintenance program, but it is an every 5-year maintenance process. Probably as many in retirement now. The program's been around 40 years, so a number of them would be retired. I would encourage you, and I think the class that just went through would say that find a mentor, someone that you know, could be one of us on the commission. It could be one of the just successfully passed class members. It could be any group from the 300 that are active. I would say that this process has been, John, you've been around 13 years. I've been at it a little less time than that, but it's been fairly consistent, let's say, over the last decade. Probably the newest wrinkle is the online exam, some tweaks here and there. So, if you were to find someone that had gotten their CCE, say, 20 years ago and had not been real active in the commission or some of the other process, they may not be as current, but still would be a great mentor. And Crystal's email and phone numbers on this slide, I encourage you to jot that down because she will be certainly an ally to you throughout the process.
One other thing I want to throw out that I do not think was mentioned, I also was in a unique situation that when the Lexington job opened up the first time, I got in 7 years after it initially opened up, but I could not even apply. And some chambers I know do this. If you do not have a CCE, you cannot apply to a chamber opening. Now, that may not be nationwide, and there may only be a few, but the one that I set my sights on when I was just starting out was the one in Lexington. So I wasn't ready for it. I wouldn't have received it, but I couldn't even apply. 7 years later when it came open, I had and it's exactly what you're thinking. I got my CCE. And then I saw a whole world open up in front of me after that. But again, that's just something you might want to put in the back of your mind that there's a lot of different reasons, a lot of different things that help you. What John said, the continuing education aspect of it and the lifelong learning component, but it can also have some short-term impacts on your career as well.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, all good questions, and again, the staff at ACCE can be very helpful as you go through that process. Again, up here we have some intent to apply forms. We have a few copies of the application if you'd like to walk out of here with a copy of that. And if there are no other questions or comments, thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.